I think a couple more people might join us. So we are recording this, and we will post it on the web, just like we do other recordings. This is Andy Stack, Chair of the CA Board. I just would like to remind everyone that we are doing a virtual work session due to the continuing state of emergency. And as I stated, it is being recorded. So just please keep that in mind.
Is that a cat?
Andy, you muted yourself. Andy, your mic is off.
Oh boy. Let's see that. Okay. You ready?
Wow. Okay.
All right. Why don't hello, everybody. How about we are going to announce who's in on the meeting. Would you let's see.
Just
read the names. Just read the names.
Yeah.
Renee.
Here.
Lynn.
Here.
Janet.
Here.
Dick.
Here.
I don't see anyone else on the screen. Nancy?
Yes, I'm here.
Alan, are you there?
I'm here. If you click on people in your top right corner, you'll be able to see a list of everybody.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Oh.
Rafi? Okay. Who else is there that we've missed?
I'm here, Sherry.
Sherry? Okay. Anyone else?
Andy?
Milton.
Well,
Andy's out there someplace.
Milton, and is Susan still there?
Yes, I'm here.
And is Jackie still there?
Yes.
Any other staff that I don't see?
Janet Lochran.
Oh, Janet, hi.
Hi.
Okay, is that everyone? Did I miss anybody? All right. We're going to, I'd like to move for approval. Excuse me, I'd like to move for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Is that Lynn?
Second.
Yes.
And second was
Sherry.
Sherry. Okay. You?
I'd like to discuss.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I would like to ask that we include a few minutes about the villages.
Second.
Okay.
Who seconded?
Alan.
Nancy, and who seconded?
Alan.
Alan.
Alan. Okay, Nancy moved it. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Move for approval then, the agenda. All in favor? As amended, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Now, when the staff's speaking, if you could let them cover a topic before we ask questions, if that's possible. So we would start with status of bank financing. If you'd let them finish that before, if you really have a pressing question, please just state your name first so we know who's speaking. All right? Is that acceptable?
Yes, but can I ask a question about how this works exactly? Are they going to have a slideshow or a PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and are we going to get a copy of it?
You'll get a copy of it sent to you tomorrow in Google Docs.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Let's start with an update of the CA financing.
Sounds like Andy's back.
Susan, will you be handling this or will Milton?
No, I will be. If I could ask everybody to mute their phones while they're not speaking, there's a lot of feedback.
All right, well, everybody please do that. Okay, status of bank financing.
Okay, so we had a very good call with our relationship and credit team from TD Bank on Monday. They had some questions that we answered, and they said that CA's history was very impressive. Yesterday, the relationship manager informed us that they had submitted the request to their credit team. He actually wrote, CA is a straight A student, which would be an overwhelming discriminator under normal circumstances. So I think we've gotten some really good feedback. They sent some additional questions, and one I would like to ask the board just kind of temperature check on. They asked if there have been any discussions with the board on potentially increasing rates for sport and fitness in FY21 to account for any lost revenue or funds earmarked for other projects, for capital projects. So just keep in that they were asking if there's any, if the board would be open to increasing sport and fitness rates.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about that now? Because I was going to raise a similar issue.
Okay.
That rather than raising the rates of sport and fitness, which we've talked about before, and I think the concern in my mind, not in everybody else's perhaps, but again, I'm going to raise my little issue about raising the from 68 cents to perhaps 70 cents or even 71 cents for a year or so we could bring in some additional funding at minimal cost to our residents.
Okay. Any other comments? Or can we let Susan, do you have more to say?
Yeah, I just also wanted to just say that I know everyone's wondering about the timeline as am I. They have not given us an idea of that, although a couple weeks ago when we started this process, they said they'd like to close by April 30, and I would like to do that too, but we'll see. On the Bank of America line of credit, we've been sharing with them that where we are with the TD. We've been providing refreshes of the cash projections, and I don't think we've heard from them since then. So I'm just going to ask Lynn Schwartz if she would just let us know whether or not we've heard anything further from Bank of America. So
I'm here, Susan. I wasn't able to unmute myself. This is Lynn Schwartz. No, since I gave the update to them on earlier in the week, I have not heard anything back from them.
Okay, and then one other thing that's not related to the bank financing, but I did want to let you know that CA applied for one of the SBA, the Economic Disaster Injury Loan, the EIDL loans, on Friday, and we did receive email confirmation that they had gotten our application. And then that's what I have for that update.
So this is Renee. How much was that EIDL loan that you applied for?
So you don't apply for an amount. You just submit your information, and the program is up to $2 million. So I guess the next step is they'll tell you what you're going to apply for.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and finish, and then I'll ask my questions.
That's it.
Okay, so I just need to understand where we are exactly. So what I had is that on the March 26th meeting, you said Bank of America does not want to continue to extend their credit line to us. Does that mean that they're willing to let us continue drawing monthly, or have they stopped that?
So they don't want to continue with us in an unsecured position, and
right.
We have an agreement with them. We're not in default, and so we're honoring the agreement. So we are continuing to use that line.
So
to the borrowing limits in the agreement.
Okay, so on May 1st, you can take a draw.
Yeah, we don't do it like that. So we do it, it's like Andy did a great job explaining it. It's like overdraft protection.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't see why not. We don't draw out a big slug of money at the beginning of the month.
Okay, but you draw continuously during the month.
Correct.
And you're drawing this month right now in April.
Yes.
Okay, so how much have you drawn down in April?
I don't know what the balance is right now. Lynn, do you have any idea?
I do, yes, I'll give it to you in just a second here.
So
It's about 7.5 million right now, close to 8 million.
yeah, but what did you draw down in April? You didn't draw down 8 million, did you?
No, we haven't drawn down anything in April, actually, because we received a $3 million incoming wire.
I'm sorry, could you say that again? It was a little muted, or
We received a $3 million incoming wire that I think you were aware of in April, and that's why we haven't drawn down anything yet.
that was from the risk management trust,
Correct.
the insurance trust?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so you haven't drawn then since March. That's what I was trying to understand. All right, thank you. So may I ask a question about the current? Oh, go ahead, whoever.
I just have this is Alan, I have a related question. I guess if we have an agreement that's binding between the two of us and we're following it, why do we need to look for other loans?
Because they don't want to continue with the agreement within the loan in the unsecured position.
And when could they have enforced that yesterday?
Yeah, they could.
Oh, okay, thank you. I was misunderstanding what you were saying. Thank you.
So, Lynn, I have a question. When you said about 8 million, was that the total?
Right.
Okay, that's
the running balance. Mm-hmm.
Right.
So,
okay.
It changes, it changes as like tomorrow we have a payday.
Right.
And it'll change tomorrow.
So we're going to use the line of credit to fund the payroll.
Yes, we're in the line of credit.
I know that.
Continuously, yeah.
Right, but my question is, tomorrow's payroll, is that money already in the bank? Or are we going to draw down our line of credit?
We will be drawing down the line of credit most likely tomorrow.
Okay, so, all right, so then my next question is, I thought when we had the meeting on the 26th, that we were that the Risk Management Committee had given permission for the $3 million or so, approximately, for 2 payrolls and $600,000 of miscellaneous expenses to total $3 million. So this would have been one of those 2 payrolls.
Yes, but it's in the bank applied to the line right now. In other words, the $3 million isn't in one account separate from the Bank of America account. It's all merged together.
Right.
So if we had not received the $3 million, if we had set that aside into a separate account, the line of credit would be over 10 million right now.
So you paid down the line.
Yes, but it'll be taken right back out when the payroll.
That's okay. I'm just trying to understand how you're managing the situation. That's all.
Okay.
Okay, so can we go to the TD Bank credit facility or potential facility? My question is, at what level of approval are you currently in? Are you in a regional level? And what level of approval is needed?
So I don't know. I don't know what level of approval it is. So it's my understanding that it's gone to their credit committee, that is the committee that's doing the approval.
So they have $40 million of credit authority. I
believe so. More than that, I believe.
Well, in banking, you work up the chain depending upon the amount of money that you borrow. Mm-hmm. So that's my question. Is the regional credit committee, do they have a $40 million lending capacity, or do they need to get approval from another group?
I can find out.
That would be great to know.
Okay.
And if it has to go to the next group, when would that group be?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Andy, are you back? Andy?
Yes, not.
Yes, I am back.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. We'll go to the next item. review the 2020 end of the year estimate? Susan, you want to?
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you, and this is what we've been working on. All the managers have been working on this for quite a while, so hopefully you'll be able to see. And I'll do my best to make it larger. So this is the revenue section of, and this should look familiar to you. This is the same setup as or format as our quarterly financial report. So the first column says FY 2020 3Q EST. That's what was in the financial report that we delivered to you back in mid-March. So those are the numbers. Total income at that point we expected for FY 20 ending April 30, 2020 to be $75 million. With the mandated closure, we now estimate that the annual revenue or the annual income for CA for this fiscal year will be $70,438,000. So you can see that's a reduction of $4,608,000. And you can see it in things like tuition and enrollment, which is school age services, memberships direct and membership allocations, fee income from the usage of the facilities like personal training, tea times, tennis, some rental income from the people who use the facilities, and so on. So this is where we think, as of earlier today, where we think the income will be at the end of FY 20. Any questions about that part so far?
No.
Just real quick, this is Alan. What's the difference between direct memberships and membership allocations? The short version?
Yeah, the direct memberships are memberships that are for one facility only. And the membership allocations are the ones like the CA Fit and Play and the Golf Fit and Play, where there are multiple facilities that people are using in that membership.
Okay. And it's worth it to you all to keep them separate like that. That helps you all.
Yeah, and then you can
Okay.
see, because when you dig into the detail, each facility, you can see what's going on.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions on the income? Okay. Okay, so I'll scroll down, and here's where we are on the expenses. Let's see. Let me show you this. So the bottom line is we're about $2,366,000 below where we thought we would be in mid-March. And the decreases in expenses that we're working on are the personnel costs and salary and wages through employee benefits, payroll taxes. We're reducing operating supplies and technology collection, all those things, fees, everything that was discretionary that we could stop quickly. All of the things that, the supplies that aren't needed for the facilities and school age services, any consulting that was hadn't started yet that we could stop. We have a reduction down here in repairs, in depreciation, lower than we expected because we're going to do fewer capital or close and complete fewer capital projects in FY 20 now. So this is still in flux. We have some adjustments to flow through here still, but this is where we were as of the end of the day today for where we think we will be for FY 20. Any questions?
So Susan, the way I read this is we're down $4 million in income. We've been able to reduce expenses about $2.7 million, which means deficit of $1.3 million.
So no, we're down. Where are we? $4.6 million.
Oh, 4.6 million, yeah.
right? We are below, we reduced expenses. And, it's tough to reduce expenses overnight, in six weeks for a whole fiscal year. But total operating expenses are reduced by 2.2 million right here. I don't know if you can see my cursor. And then, so where we're going to end the year, as of, earlier today, we would say we have an increase in net assets. So that's a positive position
Okay.
of $1.7 million.
Wait a minute. In net assets of 1.7 million?
An increase in net assets of 1.7. Now, 3 weeks ago, we thought that was going to be 4,093,000, but now it's 1,007,000.
Okay.
Okay, now, so this is assets and liabilities, not expenses. Yes, it's not a year-to-date budget question.
It is.
I guess
No, this is not assets and liabilities. This is year-to-date operating budget, income and expenses.
Okay, so I guess what I heard maybe from Andy, if it's 4.6 that we're going to not get in as much in income, and it's 2.3 that we're not going to spend as much, then it's about 2.3, 2.25 that we're in the hole for this year.
No,
compared to where we expected to be.
Compared to where we expected it to be, correct. So we're going to be 2.4 million below where we expected to be.
It's only going to be 1.7 to the good rather than the 4.4 that we expected. Okay,
correct.
Thank you.
Hey, Susan.
Yes, sir.
This is Milton. Please emphasize that 1.7 million is not cash. That's just increase in the net value of the organization.
That's true. That's right.
Right. Well, which is why I asked the question about. So that sounds more like assets and liabilities, and not that's or maybe they're intertwined in a way that I don't understand.
So in our technology as a nonprofit, think of it as net income. Our net income will be 1.7 for the year instead of 4.0. We are required to call it an increase in net assets. That's the terminology.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. That keeps it in the ballpark I was thinking.
If I understand what Milton is saying, that's not cash. That is not liquidity that we're talking about. Is that correct?
So what he's saying is that this does not mean that we have a $1.7 million cash balance. This is the excess of revenues over expenses. So some of it's, it's like there's depreciation in here that's a non-cash expense. But you know what the cash balance is. We're in the line of credit, so there is no cash balance at this point. So this is revenue in excess of expenses.
I think that sums it up very well. Thank you.
Any other questions for Susan? How about the status of you ready to go to the next one, Susan?
Yeah.
Capital projects.
Okay, so I don't have anything in writing for that. I just I don't have an exhibit or anything. So what's happening there is we've slowed all of the capital spending and anything. I think I mentioned this on the 26th that if any capital spending has to be approved by me, even finishing projects that were started. Now we're not going to be crazy about that. If something is unsafe or in disrepair, we'll fix it, but we're watching this very, very carefully. In addition, with the category 3 projects, how in the board, in the budget process, we have category 1 projects and category 2 projects, and they're specific, and the board approved those specifically in detail. The Cat 3 allocation is used throughout the year as things come up or as there are more routine capital items that are needed. And so as of the closure, as of March 15th, we had not committed $900,000 of that funds to specific projects. So we are just not going to spend that. We're not going to commit it. We know we're not going to spend that money. And then the managers and the construction department are just tracking this all very carefully. So again, that's just a verbal update. I don't have anything to present at this point.
Susan, I have a question for you. This is Andy. At the end of the third quarter in their financial report, we were expecting to spend about $4.2 million on capital projects for the end of the fiscal year. Could you at some point, you, Lynn, or just give us an update as to, of that $4.2 million, how much you think actually will be expended by the end of this fiscal year?
Yeah, Lynn, do you have an idea on that yet?
I'll get it. If you want to go on, I can get it in a couple minutes here.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions on the capital project?
Andy, I have a question.
Yes, sorry.
What projects are currently going on that need to be finished? Which are the most critical projects? Those obviously that were in category 3 that have not been started are not going to be started. I think we all understand that. What are the ones that are current and in effect open right now that do require completion in this year?
That's the level of detail that I don't have prepared for you. So we can work on that, but I don't have that at this point.
Okay, thank you.
So, Andy, this is Rafia. So basically, my understanding is that, Susan, only the essential necessary projects which are concerning the safety and that kind of project, whether it is from this year or in the next year budget, are the only way you're going to approach until the situation is resolved. Is that correct?
That's in general what's going to happen.
Okay, thank you. And that makes sense.
Any other questions for Susan on the 2020 capital projects? Okay, Susan, you want to move to the cash flow projection?
I will, yeah. Okay, so this, I'm sorry, is a supreme eye test here, but we'll do our best to make it better. Oops. Okay, so I want to ask Lynn to go through most of this, but just so I'll just orient you to the format here. Can you see it? Everybody can see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, we can see it, and we can see your cursor, so you can use your cursor to help us.
Okay, great. So what we showed some of the past, let's see, actual activity through March, and then projections in April and going forward. So the green area that's highlighted here is just, it was the significant, most important focus, because we were looking at how we get from closure to the annual charge, billing, and collection. So there's a lot of detail here. Down on the left, we're talking about what our normal receipts are, the sources of those items, and then the disbursements. So Lynn, can you walk through this, or are you there?
She may be off researching what you asked her to.
Oh, she just told me this is the wrong one, so I got to get the other one. Can you, okay. Yeah. All right. Sorry, talk amongst yourselves so I get the right one up here. So as you can see, we've been working on this it's just continual. And one thing I did want to give you an update on too that was really great. You know, one of the legislative changes was to allow payroll taxes to be deferred calendar year. Yeah, and so we were tracking that closely. The guidance came out on Friday. Our payroll provider gave us the application or the patch to install on Monday, and we got it installed and running for Tuesday's pay commit for this Friday. So it took $60,000 less out of our account. So really good work from the team there. All right.
Susan, I saw from the other slide that you were projecting being back in business. We were projecting having things open July 1st.
So that's what we're targeting, at least a partial opening in July. But you know, it's everyone's guess at this point, but we had to come up with something, and we thought that was probably reasonable, at least for some limited scope of facilities.
I had heard that the state was now putting out July 10th as a possibility, or was it June 10th? Anybody else know that? State of Maryland?
No.
Well, Shari, in a press conference the other day, one of the governor's medical advisors used mid-July, and he objected to that and saying that we're not ready to make that type of commitment.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, but we're going to use the July 1st for our planning purposes.
Yes, as Susan started, that's just what we're using right now. But one of the words of caution that I've given the staff and I share with the board is that you remember how Governor Hogan is very conservative when it comes to gatherings. And all the facilities that we're talking about here are places where people gather. And so, yes, this is the time frame we're using, but we realize this could be a moving target.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
So one thing that and I'm sure you all are aware of, one thing that I'd like us to make sure we're focused on is what's the cost of having a particular target and then having to move it, you know, cost of ramping up to meet that target and so on. I'm sure you all are aware of that, but that's a piece of this puzzle too.
Yeah, so we built in a ramp up, but not starting very far out. So, and that could shift. We could just kind of move that along a calendar. So Lynn, now that you straightened me out with the right one, can you want to walk people through it? I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. This exhibit here, unlike the income statement exhibit we were looking at a minute ago, this is cash. This is pure cash, receipts and disbursements that are forecasted. February and March are shown there to kind of get you grounded in what was actual activity. March, of course, was not a regular month, but the actuals are in the record books, so that's the actuals there. And a couple key lines to focus on, the bank balance. There is from time to time on any given day a few $1,000s in the bank that hasn't been swept against the line of credit, but it is nominal, as you can see. Then we'll look at the bookends. If you get down to the almost last line down at 36 there, the month end balance LOC, that is the actual balance that we owe on the line of credit at the end of any given month, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so everything in between is summarized from dozens of different detailed account codes summarized into these lines to monitor what comes in and what goes out. We have a little bit of annual charge money that comes in all year long, not only because we have some delinquent payers, but because we have some quarterly billings that go out when we receive a quarterly updated file from the state. Credit card and ACH are typically our largest generated receipts. It's over 2 million in February, and normal month will be over 2 million. And then March, you'll see the hit we took because we did not do a billing for membership. We did not do have any cash card or credit card receipts at any of our facilities. So that's the hit you're seeing there on that receipts line. Auto borrow credits, Renee, that's the amount that we are drawing on the line in any month. So we show it as a receipt. But if you go down to row 25 and you see auto borrow debits, that's what we pay back on the line during the month. So daily, it's in and out, in and out. That's how that line of credit works. Disbursements are pretty self-explanatory. We have payroll on its own line because it is so significant, and you'll see what we're doing there to payroll as we go over to the green area. Operating expenses are all the other operations, the rents, the utilities, the repairs and maintenance, supplies, fees, etc. Capital expenditures is the dollars that have gone out towards capital projects. Debt service is the monthly payment. It is consistent every month, like a mortgage on the TD Bank loan. And we already talked about the auto borrow debits. So those are the items. The green area. Any questions so far?
So I'm just a little bit curious. You have the term loan coming out during the month of April, but we haven't even been approved yet. Don't you think we need to move that to May?
No, that's our existing term loan. We borrowed.
It says new term loan.
Well, we borrowed money from TD Bank back in 2014, and that's the existing payment on that loan.
No, the 20 million.
That's the 20 million that we owe. We owe them about 20 million now on that loan. But there is, if you go over to the May column. I hope I'm not yelling. Am I yelling? Am I giving you?
No, you're doing great. You're doing great.
So Lynn, can I just interrupt you for a minute? What Renee is saying is, up in the receipts, we show the new term loan of $20 million coming in as a receipt, and she's saying she thinks that should be May.
Oh, it might be, but right now we have it in April.
Okay, so can I ask a question about these projections in general? My first question is about the annual charge. During the state of emergency, is there any prohibition against us collecting the annual charge?
No, that I'm aware of.
Renee, are you asking from like a legislative standpoint or something?
Well, I'm asking, like, I was under the impression that the county is not going to be billing real estate taxes immediately. Is that true or not? Is that just the rumor?
So I have reached out to the county budget director early on and said, if you guys are doing anything, would you please let us know? I haven't heard anything from her, and we haven't seen any indication of that at this point.
Okay. All right. Okay. So can I take that?
Virginia has decided to push their due date back by a couple of months. That's the only thing that's been in the news on real estate taxes.
I thought that was also being considered by Maryland. I agree with Renee. I had also heard that.
I had as well.
There isn't anything on it yet.
We haven't seen a thing, and certainly nothing's come from the county about it.
Yes, and Shari, the only conversations that I've heard about that it would, if it's a possibility, the governor will leave it to the discretion of the local jurisdiction.
Okay. Well, the fact that we're not a government, would that have any bearing then? I mean, we're a private organization that.
Right, no, it wouldn't.
You know, when you think about
My recommendation is that if we have the information, usually the state of Maryland, Howard County provide us the accessible base, and if they provide it on time, I think that since majority of our property owners pay through the mortgage banks, I think as a private organization, we should just, based on if the information is available for billing, we should still do it. And then we'll just be lenient if it takes time for people to pay. That's all.
I agree with that. I think that's really wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree also.
Oh, no, definitely case by case, I would think.
Right.
Have we ever done that before, Rafia?
We really never had this situation before, honestly. So I can't tell that, but as far as I know, that is where we can take care of it, right? In other words, be prompt. If it is available, do the billing on time, and let the collection as they come from, mostly from mortgage banks. If that is the case, that's fine. And there are some property owners who write the checks because their mortgages are fully paid for. If those people who ask for some leniency, and I'm sure CA will use this discretion and will grant that. So I don't think CA is going to be very harsh at this time, but I think that we should still, pursue if the information is available on time.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that approach. I was just wondering whether we had any kind of structure in place already for managing that, or whether we would need a policy of some kind. But all right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So we're into the green area now then, which is the expected closure period. If you go down to the card ACH receipts line, could you all mute your phones? If you go down to the credit card ACH line, you'll see that in April and May, we have conservatively budgeted zero. We do not expect to bill for membership or school age during those months. Now that could change. There's been no word on when the schools will reopen, et cetera. But right now we're assuming zero in April and May. We're assuming about half of a billing period for June. If the facilities open July 1, and then we've assumed that we will bill on July 18th, but it won't be to the extent that we would have recognized our revenue before, because we have a number of members who have frozen their accounts, and those freezes won't expire until some the end of June, some the end of July, etc. The facilities cash and miscellaneous receipts line comes back up in July when the facilities are open. Those are lessons, sales at the desk for lessons, programs, etc. I do have the term loan funds coming in April. That's what we had initially talked to our bank representative about. Having it done by April 30, I'm still optimistic that it'll be a go by April 30. Payroll, the numbers here show you the plans that we're making in terms of payroll reduction. That payroll line includes both the gross pay as well as the employer payroll taxes that we pay. And since we were fortunate enough to qualify for a Social Security tax deferral, if you go down 6 or 7 lines there to the payroll tax deferral line, you'll see where I've got that reducing the payroll disbursement. If we're going to, in fact, be able to wait and pay that out in calendar year 21 and 22.
Lynn, is that just the employer portion or your employer and employees portion? The deferral is only on employer portion?
It's the 6.2% employer portion only.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And that's taken as a negative because it's a negative from it's money we've already
It's included in the gross payroll disbursement.
It's already included in line 19. Okay,
Exactly.
thank you.
So I'm just.
And then is it 6.2 plus the Medicare portion, so total of 7.65% of your payroll?
No, we're only permitted at this point to defer the 6.2.
Only. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So can I ask a question about the general assumptions then?
Sure.
Okay, we're already at a 10% unemployment rate. So how did that impact your facilities receipts, for example, or the charges that you get at the front desk for training? Because if we have 10% of the people unemployed today, now it could be more or less, did you take that into account in those revenue figures?
Yes, absolutely. We're not bringing the revenue figures back up to what they would have been in the budget for the entire fiscal year 21.
Okay, and by what percentage did you knock them down?
Well, 1 second.
And while you're calculating that, maybe Susan, if you could, is the fact that the July payroll line is 25% more than the August payroll line, is that just normally the way we do things? Because
No,
of pools?
because there are 3 payrolls in 3 pay dates in July.
Great,
so,
thank you.
So most other months just have 2, but it does reflect also a bump up for the summer aquatics program, but to a much lesser degree than previous years.
So my next question, while she's looking that up, is for the annual charge, if we're going to have a 10% give or take unemployment rate, I would think that that's going to lead to some foreclosure. So are we going to put together some type of policies and procedures? We need to be pretty aggressive in making sure that our lien is perfected if the payments aren't made. And how will that affect our cash flow for the receipts?
So we factored in a slowdown of collections and an increase in abatements, particularly for the commercial properties. I think that's greater exposure. And for foreclosures, when a homeowner is foreclosed upon, the bank owns the house, so the annual charge is still due.
Right.
So we've been through this to some extent in the Great Recession, although it was not material at all. So we know how to handle that. And with the liens right now, you can't do it. You can't file any. You've been prohibited from doing that. So once that's lifted, we will then follow up and do those things.
Thank you.
So the membership revenue and facility cash receipts, et cetera, are expected to be about, once you get out to September, they're expected to be about 80% of what we would have expected in the past.
It's not going to happen.
We do it, well, it's an estimate, it's a forecast, but we have it building up. We have it building up rather slowly.
So is this what you gave to the bank?
Sorry?
Did you give this to the bank?
Yes.
Okay.
I know you haven't had time to run full scenarios, but I guess, and maybe I just want to flag it, that it would be a good idea when you have a moment to breathe to think, okay, so if this 80% turned out to be 50%,
yeah,
what would that mean? And what are we encumbering now based on 80% that maybe we ought to pull back a little bit? Because what if, anyway, there's costs involved in some of these things,
right,
in making whatever predictions we make.
Well, Alan and Renee, this is a point in time, and these numbers are here for this presentation. but I'm working with each one of the department managers to come with different scenarios as we move through, because there's a lot of uncertainty out there. But this is point in time as of right now, and these are the estimates that we're working with. Yes, this can change as this pandemic continues, and also we will look at the other scenarios that we have.
Great, thank you. And I would say you underestimated it. That's uncertainty is all that's out there. It's not just some of what's out there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Again, once you move from the and the green area shows you what we expect to spend in terms of monthly during the closure. The Bank of America line of credit would presumably be paid off. So the line of credit balance would go down to 0 at that point. And then we would begin to build it back up with the new bank, presumably. If not, the line of credit will stay with Bank of America.
But I thought Bank of America didn't want to extend the credit line.
Unsecured.
So you're going to secure it with them.
We would have to if we wanted to continue.
So are you trying to get it unsecured with TD Bank?
No, it's not unsecured by TD Bank. It's secured by the annual charge.
Okay, so it would be secured either way. Okay.
Can I just make one comment? Because since the TD Bank is holding the term debt and where the annual charge is already provided to them as the security for the term debt, it's easier for CA to have the line of credit secure because TD Bank already have first preference right now as the holder. So they can definitely provide much better rate than the unsecured loan.
Exactly.
Right.
And just to be clear, what we're looking for from TD Bank is not another line of credit, it's a loan.
Right.
Would we
It's
then
both.
want to go back to a line of credit at some point?
It's both. It's both. It's a term loan and a line.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
My understanding, Susan, is you're asking $20 million term debt and $20 million line of credit. Is that correct?
At this point.
Okay.
And that's on top of our already existing term loan, is that correct?
It is.
So then you're going to take $9 million and put it in the bank. All right, term loan to savings?
Right. That was for the future capital funding that we would be expecting to ramp back up into.
Susan,
Yes.
we emphasize that, talking hypothetically, if we get the loan from TD Bank, what we plan to do is pay off our line of credit with Bank of America.
Correct.
So we would not have two line of credits, right?
Correct.
Right.
Is there any, this is Ginny, is there any chance that if we don't get the other loan, which I certainly hope we do get it, that Bank of America would not only want the current loan secured, but would want to charge interest?
Oh, more interest.
They currently charge interest, so that definitely the interest rate would go up.
Higher. Would it go up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, moving through, Lynn.
Well, the pink area is the forecast for the remainder of FY21. And Susan, if you could move it over just a little so I can see March, April. It points out where we go back into the line. You know, the line gets paid down every year when the annual charge receipts come in. And even if they are lower than we expect them to be, we still expect them to pay off the line of credit. And then we go back into the line in the January, February timeframe. And then again in July, August, the line is paid off and we start to repeat the cycle once again.
Gotcha.
Any questions?
So are we going to have to go back and look at the budgets that we already approved and redo them, for lack of a better way of phrasing it? Or are we out of this as the board?
No, we had intended to prepare a revised FY21 budget.
Good. Yes.
Right.
We would.
And actually, I'm sorry. Each quarter, you guys already present where you need to have the changes to the budget to the board, right? As part of your board report, quarterly board report?
We haven't had to make any changes to the budget in years.
Yeah, but the mechanism is there. I'm just trying to remind, the mechanism is there.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So I do have a question. So this forecast, the assumption is that CA will continue to use the line of credit for including salaries. I don't see that line. Maybe I'm not seeing it. All right. For 6 months, February through July. Is that correct?
This coming year, we're in it now, yes. And once we go out of it, when the annual charge receipts come in, we expect to go back in for about 6 months. And this is typically the way it's been every year for a while.
So what CA had done for decades, especially once the interest rates started falling and we were still saddled with those senior secured bonds that had such high interest rates, is we would use the line of credit for the short term. And we did this back in 2014, where you saw the culmination of this. We would build up a balance on the line, and then we would term it out. We would issue long-term debt to replace it. So we did that in June of 2014. And for a couple years, we had a lot of excess cash because we borrowed $30 million and just continued to keep low capital spending. So again, the interest rates were so favorable in the short-term debt that it didn't make sense to incur a lot of long-term debt at higher rates.
Milton?
Yes.
Do you have an idea of when you might present a proposed revised fiscal year 21 budget to the board?
Susan, is part of the presentation tonight, isn't it?
Well, it's not finished. So we've been working on that with all of the managers. So we're trying to pull that together, but it's getting close.
So basically I could think of like the meeting in end of April, the 23rd, might be a chance for the board then to look at a proposed revised budget.
I think so. Lynn, what do you think?
I think so, as long as we don't have to provide the book that you're used to getting.
Right.
That's quite an ordeal, and but we can certainly provide a budget. Yes.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what, you don't have to provide the book the way you do it now.
But I do think we need to see more than one budget. I think that this is fine for right now, but I think we need to see a worst case scenario. And then you have to plan for the worst case here. What if we can't open in July? And what does that do to this company? And what are we going to open in July? And what is the cost of keeping? Do we open all the gyms? One gym? I mean, do you even open any pools? Do you open all the golf courses? What are we looking? How do we conserve cash? I don't want to know how we spend it. We can spend it, but how do we conserve cash over the summer until we're situated at a point where we feel confident that our cash flow is good and everything's ramped up?
Can I just make a comment? I think we as the board really need to provide some leadership as to we really cannot afford to open all 23 pools. So we need to really realize, say, you know, are we going to only open one pool in each village? I mean, we need to look into as to what we can decide and then justify to the residents that, you know, I think that is very, very important for especially during this period, that what facilities, you know, we're working with the staff. Of course, you know, we need to seek out their recommendation and then take the steps to support those decisions of the staff so that we can survive through this difficult time.
As I said earlier, Rafia, we are looking, I'm working with the department directors. We're looking at various scenarios. We're not fixated on any understanding that this is a moving target. I've even asked the department directors to look at a phased-in approach over 90 days, over 120 days.
Okay.
What happens? Just look at it from a picture that, no, we're not going to be able, well, reality tells us whenever we're giving permission to open our doors again, we're not going to be able to go full steam from there. It's just going to be a different organization from day one that we can reopen and for probably years going ahead. And we're looking at that.
So, Milton, this is Ginny. So we will be getting several options, best possible case, worst possible case. That's good.
Well, we're going to present you with a revised budget and we'll give you the assumptions that we used in that.
I think as a board member, I'd like to see a worst case, at least two. This could be one, but I'd like to see a scaled down budget that shows something where we struggle for several months to ramp up for either healthcare reasons with virus or unemployment or all of those factors. And I think that the board needs to show a little bit of leadership here.
I very much agree with what Rafia said. I think we have to look at the totality of the facilities. I think there are adaptations and modifications that we can make as a board and come up with some sort of interim plan, just as you have done that with the finances here. I think this is very impressive. And I want to thank you guys for working on this. I think the part that the board can work on, because we are answerable to our community, is what is the justification for whatever plan we're going to introduce, whatever steps we're going to design in order to move into that new future, as Milton says. So Rafia, thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
And I think this might be an opportunity for us as well. We're going to have to manage things, obviously. So this will give us an opportunity to try some of those things that we've been so reluctant to do.
Exactly.
Lynn, anything else you want to add, or to move on to the last topic?
That's it. Thank
Well,
you.
before we move on, Andy, before we move on, I'm hearing two different things, and I'm not clear which direction management thinks it has. I heard from Milton they will be presenting us a budget with the assumptions that they use. I've heard from at least a couple of board members we'd like more than one budget to look at with different assumptions.
I think I'll leave it up to I'll ask Milton what he heard, but my thought is, from what I've heard from the board, that we want to see at least two different things. One is a worst case, and then one is our best bet or best assumption. Is that true? I mean, that's...
Yeah,
I'm going to say I don't think we can do a worst case. I think because the worst case is we're not allowed to gather until a vaccine is
Right.
invented, and that's 2 years away. But we got to make some reasonable assumptions, but there's got at least two different sets. This is a better case. This is a worse case.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it, Alan.
Yeah, that's what I was asking for also, yes. I don't know if that's doable by April 3rd.
Milton,
Can I
is it
make a
doable by
suggestion?
April 3rd?
I'd like to make a suggestion. And
Yes.
that is, instead of doing whole new budgets, we should probably break it down into specific actions that could be taken and what that would cost or not cost or save.
Well,
And then we can look at those things as we go along and say, okay, we drop this program or we add this, or take this out. But to go through the whole, telephone directory size budget and revise it, I think we really need to have to do it on a piece by piece basis.
Dick, we're not going to do an entire new budget. We're just going to take the budget that the board approved for FY 2021 and look at it using different scenarios.
Just see what
And when you say look at it, what does that exactly mean?
It means that basically, as what I've heard so far, what would be, I'm not going to use the best case, but what would be a desirable case and what would be a less desirable case?
Well, I'm looking at this thing. Let's say, let's take swimming pools, for example, since somebody that was mentioned. As we look at things, we should just price what it would cost to shut down X number of pools. And if we get it in a crunch, the board could then vote to shut those pools down or something. I mean, I'm looking at specific budget items that are manipulative, that can be manipulated, and knowing what the price tags on those are. So as we get into, further into this thing and we have a better idea of where we're going to come out, we can look at these items and say, okay, we're going to do this or that, and we know what the price tag is.
I think that's a good approach. There are some things that are actionable and can be done with consensus, and maybe something that can be done in a short term as opposed to a long term, with the idea of cash flow. There are other things, for example, whether or not schools will open. That will certainly affect before and after school and camps and all of those things. And there's nothing we can do about that. So I think that approach is probably a good idea.
So this is Susan. I just one thing that you need to keep in mind too is that we need a budget. So in order to do financial statements for May, for example, we need a budget in order to show budget to actual variances. And the banks are going to want to see a budget. We're not the only users of those. So at some point you're going to have to settle on something. You may change it later, but you're going to have to settle on something in order for us to even do financials.
I think we can do that. Go ahead, Nancy.
Does it make sense that we look at the budgets? I mean, we can't go month by month, but I think initially we might have to. I mean, for May and June, the budget is going to be different than it would be for hopefully July, August, or September. So that May and June would be as bare a minimum as possible, and then it would hopefully show signs of growth. Can we do that with the budget?
So we do that. That's how we do it. So each month, we build the budget for the year. So, I mean, that's what you see, and then it's very obvious that that's the way it's done because the first quarter shows the activities for the quarter and those expenses and the revenue for those expenses. So that's exactly how.
Right, but I'm talking about the other things in the budget, whether it's the pools or other things. The pools would be closed, let's say June, possibly July.
Right.
But then other things would open up later. And what you're showing us doesn't have the specifics of the FY 1 and 2 or 21-22 budget that I'm thinking about.
Well, why don't we look at the next exhibit then?
Okay.
Let me jump in, please. It seems to me that what you've shown us is a revised budget. It just shows, what the changes are and where we're ahead and where we're behind.
Well, what's available?
Is this something we could vote on at the next meeting and say this is our new budget?
Yeah, this is not a budget, and I would not let you vote on this.
No, how do you mean it's not a budget? It looks like a budget.
Right, looks are deceiving. It's not a budget. And we'll get it straight.
Well, you've taken our budget and you put new numbers in it. That sounds to me like a new budget.
But
Could I suggest that the staff knows how to create a budget? We've given them the parameters that we want, assumptions for two different sets, and they're going to give it to us, and then we can choose between them. Anything that is, for me, is us getting in the weeds about how to go do it.
I agree.
I agree.
I mean, I think what I hear the board talking about is something like, so let's assume that we start opening in July, or let's assume we're going to start opening in September. Those are going to be two different types of scenarios.
Right.
Yeah. And that gives you kind of an idea of what the impact's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Andy, Nancy brought this up at the beginning about the question of raising 1 or 2 cents, and if we are re-examining our budget, how would that affect this going forward? Do we have an opportunity to re-examine it and see a scenario if, for example, we raised it 2 cents?
To do it for this coming July?
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Could I just point out that it was if I recall, the question from the bank was, were we going to raise rates? Which I took to mean our sports and fitness rates.
They would love us to raise the annual charge rate.
They would. So they do. Okay. So that was about annual charge. Thank you.
It was, I'm sorry, it was all any rates, but they specifically asked the second round about they asked in the first round of questions about the annual charge. What does it take to change that? And this time they asked about sport and fitness.
Well, I with all due respect, everyone, I think we need to be careful about talking about raising anything given the environment that we're in.
I totally agree, Milton.
Yeah, I can't understand why at a time when
agree
people
too.
are struggling and basically not even able to pay for basic needs, people are out of work, that we would talk about raising our rates. Now, we do have places to go here. I mean, we at one time had tens of millions of dollars more debt than we have right now. So I think we have to work with our residents to help them through this tough spot here. We have options. We don't have to run in and boy, it would just be terrible PR to announce while people are out of work that we're raising our rates.
I totally agree with that.
I liked Rafa's suggestion of, oh, sorry, Jenny, go ahead.
No, I just don't think this is appropriate at this point.
I would prefer to see something like, open one pool per neighborhood rather than, attempt to open everything. Or, cut hours at the gyms or, I don't know, but I think there are definitely some other options that, and if we're still in a difficult situation next year, then maybe we could consider raising the rate at that point. But I agree that the timing of this would be terrible after all of, so many people are impacted by, either not being able to work or having curtailed work. And then to raise the rate on top of that would be
exactly. I agree because each penny is going to bring close to 600,000. Is it worth? No, especially given today's situation. As you just said, everybody's already, being hurt. And I agree that this is a wrong year. And even if we cannot make the budget parameter, the banks and the financial institutions will totally understand because we are all in the same boat. Yeah. Very few organizations will be able to hit their mark. And so that, I think doing other things CA still very close to meeting our parameters. And so we should really leave it up to the staff, let them do the thing that I'm not in favor of raising the rates to them.
Yeah, one other point here, we're talking about reduced income to X number of our residents in Columbia, but we also need to think about how many have either lost or might lose their health care, which will increase their costs. So,
right. I think I agree with Rafi and Janet that we should do this in the context of a whole budget when we know more what we're dealing with. To just do one part of it now, I think is fairly irresponsible. I think we need to look at the whole picture when we have it. Then talk about what we need to do for next year.
Okay, Andy, you ready for the next one?
I think so.
Okay, so what you should see on your screen is what the staff has done to attempt to revise or come up with a proposed revised FY21 budget. So this is literally, I think these numbers are from about 6 o'clock tonight, but we've made a lot of progress. So what you see is the column C is the original budget that you approved in February. Then we're showing what we think the proposed budget would be for FY21. So you see that we do anticipate a reduction in the annual charge revenue from abatements, mainly for commercial properties. The tuition and enrollment reflects where we think we would be with school age services. You know, that would have continued for May and most of June this year. And the camps will not be picking up, we don't think, in June, maybe the second half of July. So this reflects camps for the second half of July forward. Memberships, this reflects opening in July and a soft opening or phased opening. I think this reflects 9 outdoor pools and just a reduced capacity in the clubs, having them open, but limited capacity for fitness for group X. That we think that the social distancing will continue. So we reflected that in here. So, and then fees, just, lack of participation, less participation in a lot of activities. So this is just the first pass of, probably something that's fairly realistic and not very optimistic. And this is where we think we would be for income.
That looks like a new budget to me.
Yes, that's right.
That's a possible proposed new budget. My suggestion is that these same assumptions be our better case, and that you also come up with some worst case assumptions and see what that does.
Okay.
But in the meantime, Susan needs something to show the banks. And I think this is a good thing to show the banks.
Well, I'm not ready to do that yet, but let's.
Well, I mean, this is the type of thing we wanted to see. I don't want to go to the banks with a worst case scenario. I want to go with the realistic scenario.
Something that's reasonable. So take a look at the expenses then. So again, this reflects the personnel reductions that we'll be making during the closure period into July. This reflects again 9 pools, not 23. So it's not the staff for the outdoor pools, and reflects changes in open space operations. That would be a reduced mowing schedule and less trimming, no annuals, lots of changes there to address just the revenue concern. Fees, that $1 million is almost a big chunk of that. Most of it is the outsourcing, the extra. We've engaged an outside landscaping company to do a lot of extra maintenance in the open space edging and blowing, extra work that we would not do this year. We would not engage them at all. I took a huge risk and put in a reduction in the grant to the villages commensurate with their percentage decrease in the annual charge revenue up here. The other changes are utilities just being a little light because of usage, and the pools repairs and maintenance going down. But you see down here, interest expense goes up. That's the one expense that goes up because of the new financing. So at this point, bottom line is negative. It's $57,000 decrease in net assets. And that's about where we are. And these are with pretty dramatic personnel actions.
And I would advise we put this together, but please just look at it as a placeholder.
Right.
Because it's going to constantly evolve.
Right. And this is, yeah, I'm sorry, Milton. And this, like I said, this is a living thing. This is people are still working on even this, whatever scenario you want to call this, best, worst, reasonable, or whatever, is still being worked on.
Do we have liquid? I may be using the wrong term. Liquid assets that, if you go back down to that bottom line, this budget still proposes an increase to our assets, or a very slight decrease to our assets. Well, no, wait a minute.
Yep.
No.
Is it a decrease to assets, or is it a decrease from what we expected?
Alan, the proposed one is a $57,000 decrease.
Right. So what that means is
what's the floor of that?
Say that again.
So I don't know how to compare 57,000 to what it could be. I mean, could it be a 3 million decrease in assets? Would we be able to withstand that? I don't know.
Yeah, so we could stand it. We have to look at what it does to the cash flow. So that's, you have to do this in tandem. So, but yeah.
Okay. I guess for me, it would help to have some kind of, we're dealing with such an unknown in a sense, and we want to make sure this isn't an existential crisis to the organization. And I get that you're working on that. I don't know how low that number could go before it becomes an existential crisis, or how much we should be thinking maybe some deficit financing, if you will, is the way to go for a little while, and we could stand it for X period of time as we recover.
Yeah, we'll try to evaluate all of that.
Thank you.
Susan, Milton, one of the things you might want to consider in addition to this is going along with what the impact would be on the capital budget. Because, I mean, generally what we do with the increase in net assets is that gets applied against our borrowing for the capital budget. And so that means we have to cut. We have to reduce the capital budget because that's where the cash comes out.
Right. So next presentation here shows what we've, our first pass, a good hard look at the capital budget. And the cash flow projects that we will reduce that capital budget from 15 million to 8.4. And here's how the staff would propose that we do that.
Would propose, or this is your first thinking on it?
This is probably what we would end up proposing.
So I guess I'm looking at the tot lot renovations, which I believe that they were health and safety issues, which now they're going to come out, but then you're going to fix a parking lot?
No. So what we would do with some of those tot lots, if there is a safety issue, we would keep it closed. So right now they're all closed. So that would be another thing we would phase reopening of.
Well, I guess I would rather not fix the pathways on the renovation schedule. and take care of the health and safety issues in a tot lot?
So the pathways have issues as well. There, and that says Q, but some of those are health and safety also. This is also used by more people than the tot lots. So we thought, I think that the thinking there was that we would continue with that work. It's also work we can do in-house. We don't need contract labor for. So, I mean, you know, we can get into the details of each one, and you can.
Right. We'll do that later.
We've done there is some more thought to it than just pulling the numbers here.
I agree with what you just said, though, about the pathways, and they're the most used item in all of Columbia. People are always on the pathways, so I agree how incredibly important they are.
And yeah, sorry, Nancy. The other thing, so we didn't go all the way through this. At the bottom, there is pathway. There's there's tot lot. Some tot lot money in the Cat 3 allocation, and we propose reducing that very little so that those things can still happen. And we can give you more detail on that. Sorry, I'm moving the screen around, probably making you seasick.
No, it's okay.
I'm okay if you want to put the money into the pathways, but how about the clay tennis courts? How many people are they serving?
So that's one of those ones that we've started, and
I know.
So it would be difficult to stop, and it is a revenue generator. We're making the tennis program brings in some cash, so the thought was there to try to preserve that as well.
Okay, it's a good point.
Let's see. Sorry. So we would obviously some of the biggest decreases are. In the sport and fitness, we would not do phase 3 of Supreme, or we would push that off to some undetermined time. So that's a $2 million reduction there. We would not do the Columbia Gym renovation. We would not do the McGill's Common pool, the water playground and neighborhood center conversion. We're going to expand the bathhouse there. So that's $2.6 million coming off. We would propose, let's see, let me find my notes here. So we would not do these neighborhood centers. We would still do some of the smaller projects that are in Cat 3. We wouldn't take any of those out, but we would postpone most of these. And we were going to postpone the Oakland HVAC renovation could not happen this year anyway. So that was going to be deferred for other reasons. We would keep the equipment and vehicles because that if we're doing more of this work inside, which we would be doing, the wear and tear on those things would be much greater. So that's the kind of the thinking at this point. And it's been, the construction team has been working very, very hard on this, but there's more work to be done, obviously. I think that you should really just already be of a mindset that there's no way we're doing $15 million worth of capital this year, and 8.4 is pretty good if we can get to that.
So, Susan, I'm assuming like Columbia-wide, the pond dredging and repairs of $365,000 and the watershed improvement project of $540,000. All of that is on the chopping board right now.
Let's see. So, we would be doing. There was $100,000 of watershed improvements. Let me find what that was.
So that was $540,000.
It was $540. We want to maintain 100.
Is that the town center lakefront renovation you're referring to for 100,000?
No, that's down here in this watershed improvement projects.
Okay.
And what about the Columbia-wide pond dredging and repairs of $365,000? That kind of thing.
365. I'm not
I don't
seeing
see
that.
that.
Yeah.
365.
Yeah, it's at the top of that page.
Yeah, so we would only keep 100,000 in that, and there's a specific project related to that, and I'd have to find it. I don't remember what that is.
So I just wanted to make sure things of that nature are deferred.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other questions for Susan?
I'd just like to say that I
When's
think
this going to stop?
Yes, yes.
Dick,
I'm very impressed by this. I think a lot of thought went into it. I like it, and I'm pleased.
People are working very, very hard. I'll pass that along to the team. I mean, it's been nearly around the clock since, I think the last day anybody's had off was March 7th.
Oh, wow.
Well, it shows. It really shows.
Yeah, I also want to thank you. It's my understanding that Jackie and the audit staff, and I'm sure other staff, also help the villages prepare for the small business loans. So thank you very much.
Okay, anything else? So we can move to the last one, which I know you added, which was village. Jenny, can you tell me what I didn't catch the whole.
Actually, I think it was Nancy
It was Nancy.
proposed
Yeah.
and Alan seconded, and it was simply adding a discussion of the village association's requests.
Oh, all right.
No, well, it's also about apparently it's not clear. I understand that there was a conversation with the village managers about the assessment share, and that they're projected to get the full assessment share in quarters 1 and 2. And then it was the possibility that there would be nothing coming through to them in 3 and 4, which is a big concern, because that's a whole lot of money and a lot of unemployed people. So I'm hoping that they misunderstood. Can Susan respond to that? I think it was Susan who had the conversation with them.
I didn't say that they were getting nothing the last 2 quarters. I did say that we have the first 2 quarters in the cash projections, and I thought that we would be able to manage that. But I asked them to just, my thought was we were meeting as peers, as the financial leaders of our organizations, and I just encourage them to build their budgets from the bottom up, like we're doing,
Right.
and see what they need. And so, I know, as you saw in that budget, I mean, all that I've had the gall and nerve to do is to propose at some point some small reduction commensurate with the annual charge. And there should be other things that we look at, but that's where that is.
Okay, now, I think everybody understands that everybody's going to have pain in this. Nobody's going to walk away free of pain. But we've gotten a couple of emails, and again, I spoke with Kristen, who's my village manager, and they all talk about making sure that the cap is lifted this year and perhaps next year to help them with the getting back on their feet as well. And they've applied for the loans that Jackie has helped them with, or suggested that they apply for, and at least I know Kristen has. But there's also the concern moving forward about the cap, and if they get the loans and if they're able to start functioning, they don't want that cap to come in and take whatever they have, because they don't have any other means of raising money. Their rents are all disappearing as well, and so on. They're all being hurt. Is there any conversation that we can get going about lifting?
Well, Nancy, this is Milton. As I shared with the board last Friday during the Q&A, Jackie and Kristen have been meeting with the villages, having conversation with them every day. Yes, Susan was on a conference call with Kristen a week ago, this past Monday. But there's been a lot of interaction with the villages going back since the closures, and so they know how we're trying to help them. We're giving them extensive advice. We wouldn't want to think what they have to pay if they had to pay for it. So we're not hanging them out there. We want them to know, and I think the message is being said. And Jackie's on the call also, that we're here to help you.
I understand, and I think they understand it. But the direct question is, can we lift the cap this year and next year for the villages?
That's something that I saw the email today from Jonathan, and I saw the email today from Craig, and I've shared it with Jackie and Susan, and we want to look at that.
Okay.
Nancy, I think we need to have a motion by the board so that it's policy. And
No, you don't have to have a motion by the board. They were sent to us, and we
They were also sent to us.
It would take we amend the management contract, which is not a policy decision. So can we just work on this a little bit? So we got it today,
okay,
and we'll take a look at that. And of course, we want to do all that we can. I thought relationships were two-way streets, and I thought we were all working, mutually to solve some of the same problems. So we'll jump as soon as we can.
Okay.
Susan, I need to jump in here for a second. A couple of things. Just from an organizational point of view, while I get that in your head it was a meeting of equals, that can never be with you and the village managers of each village. Given the size of the organizations, given the power that CA holds around the management contract, given many people's, it's not mine, but many people's stance that it's a grant that CA gives villages, not the village's own money that the villages get. That all creates a power imbalance that even if you as an individual human being want to be their equal, you will never from your position be an equal with them. So, and that carries with it some implications that what you say has greater weight, just as any CEO, when a CEO says something in an organization, that has greater weight than anybody else saying it in the organization, and that just needs to be understood. Secondly, separate from that, I disagree that the board does not have the power to lift the cap. And while I suppose management could do it on its own, the board could set that policy. And I'm glad we're talking about this today, because it will be my intention to have that be a motion for us to discuss at our next meeting. I think this whole situation has shown that the people who said the argument was villages don't need reserves, well, this crisis has shown that villages do need reserves, and we need to respect that. I'm done.
Okay, Susan, just so everybody, I think, kind of understands. So my understanding of how the management contract works in terms of the cap is that the fiscal year would end 30 April. Then there would be the preparation of the end of the year financial report, which would not come in until July. And then at that point, they would determine if there were any overages based on the cap. But nothing there would happen until the draw for October, correct?
I'm going to have to ask Jackie to speak to that. I'm not familiar with it. I'm sorry.
Right. That's correct, Andy. It would be reduced from the first quarter draw.
Right. So that gives the board time to discuss this.
But think about that. That sets up an affiliation relationship that's already there by the management contract, which is in direct violation of the SBA Title 13.
Huh?
Yeah. That's an affiliated relationship, just having a management agreement. And then if you're going to offset funds, that's another issue under Title 13.
They are not. Sorry, they are not a subsidiary of CA. I mean, I think the relationship is not of a subsidiary and a parent. It is the relationship as a one non-profit organization versus the other, because they are totally separate entities.
They are separate
so I
entities.
don't think, yeah, but this is a management contract, and under the contract, as Andy has explained, that's exactly how most of the time it works. And I don't think that is going to violate the SBA loan thing. Not at all, because they are separate entities.
Affiliated relationships as defined by Title 13 is different than affiliated relationships for income tax purposes. Under Title 13, if you have a management contract, you are considered an affiliated organization. If you offset funds, that is also a separate issue under SBA guidelines. Okay, SBA guidelines are separate from tax guidelines.
So Renee, are you arguing that we can't even reduce their annual charge income based on our reduction in annual charge income? Is that what you're saying?
No. What I'm saying is you can't offset what we're going to take from them based on what they get from the SBA.
We're not talking about that. We're talking about the cap is something different.
No, well, but if they got excess funds from the loan, and that's what was sitting there, I mean, besides the management contract issue in Title 13, that there could be, I mean, this is the issue that Congress was dealing with when they were looking at hedge funds owning businesses and leveraged buyouts, the flow through of funds to the hedge companies. It's the same thing here. So what I'm saying is we need to talk to somebody who specializes in this. I'm not a specialist, but I do know that Title 13 sits out there and that it does specifically set out management contracts as a form of affiliation because of the hedge funds.
We will look into it, Andy.
Okay, thanks, Milton. Anything else? All right. Chairman's remarks, I gave you my report. President's remarks. Milton, anything you want to add?
Be healthy and stay safe.
Thank you.
Propose new topics. I think we going to have a lot on our plate for the next meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Well, just know that the cap issue is if it's not an old topic, it'll be a new topic.
Yes, understood, Alan.
Thank you, Alan.
Okay.
All right, anything else?
Oh, no, I thought we were done.
All right, I want to thank everyone for being here virtually. I want to thank Susan for getting together the slides, the presentation, and as Milton said, they'll make sure it gets posted and the board can look at them.
And will it be up on the public agenda?
We're going to send the slides in a Google Doc to the board.
But this is supposed to be a public meeting.
Andy asked me, we'll send it as a Google Doc to the board.
So we have to post it to our villages.
Well, and it raises the other question for me related is, are we making any efforts, and if so, any progress toward allowing for resident speak out in these virtual meetings?
Yes.
Actually, Alan, I do have an idea, and I'm hoping that it will work and we will be able to allow some resident input for our next meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
That would be great. Yeah.
Yeah, haven't forgotten about it. Working on it. Hoping we can do it.
Okay. I'm not exactly sure why we don't just post the ability to get on the call, and then people can be on the call just like they'd be sitting in the audience. But...
Yeah. Understood. Thank you, Al.
Andy, for the next meeting, if the cap issue is put on the next agenda, can we please get some research so that those of us who don't have Renee's background or have any kind of ideas about these things, very intriguing Title 13 SBA guidelines, I'd like to find out more. Can we get some at least referral to sources?
I can send you some.
Okay, that would be great.
I think Milton said also that
We
they
will,
would,
we
they
will
would
look
look
Okay,
into
we'll
that.
let Milton handle it.
Yes.
Okay, all right, if we can get that in enough time so that we all have a little bit, so we're all sort of on the same page where this new information is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I would like Milton to please get a legal opinion to us regarding this concern. We'd like to find out from those attorneys of CAs who have been, or even Sherry looking into it and telling us her understanding of that, please.
Okay.
all right, anything else? If not, I'm going to adjourn the meeting and thank you all very much. Appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Stay
Thank
safe.
you.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Weekend.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.